Hey guys, Matt here with BuiltRight Industries. I am here with Ryan. He is the product design engineer behind the new seatback MOLLE kit for the Jeep Wrangler JL JT. He's about to walk us through the install, so
let's get into it.
There we go.
All right, let's go through what comes in the kit. You get your lower bracket that attaches to your seat frame. You have your Mountech plate to mount all your gear. You have your headrest bracket. And finally, we have these blocks that attach to your headrest posts and this other miscellaneous hardware. Getting into the hardware, we have 3 button head cap screws that are 1032. They attach your tech plate to the upper bracket. Then we have these 2 flange head hex drive screws that'll mount to your seat frame, along with 2 more button head screws that attach the tech plate to the lower bracket. The tools we need for this install: a trim puller, optional hook in case you drop something, a 5/32 Allen, 9/64 Allen, some side cutters, a 7/16 inch wrench, and a 3/8 inch wrench. All right, we're going to be installing this in our 2-door Jeep. It's a little bit cramped in here, so make sure everything's as far forward as possible. And we'll pull this forward, get good access back here, and get started. All right, we're going to start by undoing the elastic down here. You got to reach your hand back here. You'll find some hooks. It's pretty easy to get off once you have that up. I like to tuck these in the top. Helps it keep it out of the way as best as possible. All right, you're just going to undo these Velcro pieces and undo the tongue and groove clip. All right, now that we've got everything exposed, you can see the 2 holes we're actually mounting to. It's going to be one right here, and the other one is actually holding a wire in place. We're going to replace that with a zip tie once we have this piece out. Use one of these pry tools to help ease this out. All right, now that we got that out, depending on the trim, you may or may not have this. So we do. We're going to take a zip tie, move it out of the way, make sure our lower bracket doesn't crush it or rub against it in any way so we don't have any damage. Best way to do that is undo this clip and fish a zip tie between these 2 holes just to loosely hold it down. When you're tightening this down, you do not want to go too tight. You don't want to put any extra stress on that cable. There. All right, we're just going to clean this up a little bit. Now that we put everything back, we can get onto the lower bracket. Perfect. All right, now that it looks like the holes are lined up, just want to point out we do have an up, so make sure you install it the right direction. It is not reversible. I want to start by fishing a nut behind the bracket, making sure you can see the threads. Start threading the bracket while holding that nut in place. Here we go. All right, we're moving on to the next side, and just very gently wedge your finger behind there, make sure the nut lines up with the hole. All right, we got pretty lucky getting those nuts on the first try. I have done this a few times, and I have dropped them in this weld back here. Easiest way to get them out is with a little hook, or you can maybe use a magnet if you can fish it through the holes. Yeah, you might need to move. This one has a bit of foam hanging off of it. Make sure that's not stuck behind your bracket, or you're going to have an even harder time putting it in. Now that they're both started, we'll get our wrenches and snug it down. All right, now that we got them started, we're going to tighten them up. You're going to use your 7/16, fish it right up from behind. You should be able to grab the nut. And I like using these low profile ratchets. You can't fit a normal size socket in here. We tried to keep the leg room as non-impacted as possible, so kind of had to make some concessions there. You can also use just wrenches for this. We have the tool, so it just makes the job a little easier. And pretty much the same thing on this side. Now that we have the lower bracket snug down, we're going to move up to the top. I've done this a few times, and I've found that you can take these all the way out. Makes it a little bit easier. You have more room outside the vehicle. Get the top bracket on there loosely, and then you can bring the whole thing back in the vehicle. Make sure it all ties together. We're back here at the workbench. We're going to install this top bracket. Get your blocks. We've already applied the PSA gasket that prevents you from scratching your seat posts. There we go. We're going to leave these loose just to make it easy so we can move them up and down once we know where everything sits. Now that the lower bracket's installed, we're going to put this all back together while we have easy access. Don't be afraid to just manhandle the upholstery, especially this part. Now that everything's buttoned up, let's put the MOLLE tech plate on. All right, we're going to install the tech plate. We like to install it with this center slot up. We're going to hang it on the middle bolt so we can access the other ones easily. Now that we got these bolts started, I checked to make sure we're lining up with the slots down here. We're going to tighten this up and then move down. Now we're installing the lower bracket to the MOLLE tech plate. Just going to go through and tighten these down. One thing to keep in mind, all these cars are going to be a little bit different just because they're not all exactly the same. So the only bolts we tighten down first are the ones attached to the lower bracket. That's going to be our anchor point, and because we can't really access them once everything's buttoned up, then you're going to want to make sure everything else is at least started before you tighten anything down. That being said, we're tightening up these last couple bolts. All right, and with that, we're done with our install, and as you can see, everything articulates just as it should. And with that, our MOLLE tech plate install is complete. If you have any questions, concerns, leave them in the comments below, or you can reach out to us directly. Thanks, have a good one.